Wow, yo. Almost gonna be late. How is everyone? Sorry, it's been a while. Um, we interrupt our deconstruct series for this conversation. Although it could, in a way, be tacked on after the video I was planning to, well, was working on. I was interrupted because of the governor stuff. Um, and yes, unfortunately, we're going to be talking about that at some point. Um, as a bit of a like nail in the coffin, put it to an end because I'm no longer officially a governor anymore, so I had to sort of wrap things up. But anyway, so in the title, people who are struggling inside their own creation, this landscape, their dream, their narrative, they're lost in their own thoughts. And this is not necessarily a kind of deep dive study, more of a observation, because it sort of ties in with that governor thing, trying to sort of wake them up. And this issue, like we've all experienced something similar. You can't sort of red pill someone who's blue pill, or you can't sort of wake someone up. They got to do it for themselves. You can't beat them around the head and tell them what they need to know. They got to have that kind of realization for themselves. So we should all be kind of familiar. And maybe I'm beating a drum here. But there are three areas I want to go over. The first one, the governor will be the last section probably. So the first incident is I've been watching a YouTuber. Some of you have noted, they were struggling. They're going through turmoil. They're in their emotions. They seem to be depressed, low self-esteem. They're trying to figure things out, and their channel has gained attention as a result. So they've got a fair substantial number of subscribers, and there are a fair number of people participating in their chat. So you get a kind of mix of, people trying to cheer this guy up. Some are trying to give some advice. Some are there just in support and company. And this fella is fairly new to streaming, but he's quickly becoming accustomed to it. He's getting his flow. So shout out to the people joining us here this evening. Oh, by the way, I noticed my subscriber count after me bitching and complaining. I don't think it's because of that, but it's gone back up. So thank you very much and welcome to any new subscribers. So yes, D-Man, thank you for turning up first of all, and also posting that PayPal link. Much appreciated. Silver Bullets, Iridium Kush, Freebird, and MGTOW Mindset, who formerly was called Carl. I'll try to remember that. remind me if I forget. Mindset for sure. Yeah. So Iridium. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Mindset. So back to this chap who's struggling, and I tried to, time zones being different. I tried to sort of throw a few comments here and there, see if they kind of resonate, see if there's a spark or something like that. And what I noticed, perhaps maybe instead of focusing on this individual, maybe focusing on his community, his fan base or community, the people in his chat, because some of the recommendations, And obviously, it's hard to give someone a good heart-to-heart talk when you're with just a chat box. You're limited to what you're saying, and messages are flying past, and things like that. I mean, he seems to have a yearning to want to be in a relationship. Very adamant, like he wants to date. He wants to find the right one. He wants to be in love. He wants he wants to carry on a dream of sorts. And he's very upset about it. And I think he's mentioned before about how he's tried to go on the dating market and it's not quite working out. So some of the recommendations are things like, hey, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about the ex. Kind of just go date and have some fun, let your hair down or whatever. Other people are, hey, maybe if you work on yourself, do some weightlifting and exercise, and level up your status, your social status. Maybe that will help. And fair play to him. He from popping in on seeing how he's doing, if there's any progress, he does seem to have put on some musculature, but his emotional state is still ultra low in my estimation. Hasn't improved one little bit, and he's still ruminating, still in this repetitive cycle of, or line of logic or thinking processing, and it's making me wonder. So like I said, this isn't like a deep dive as a case study as such, but more of as a observation, which maybe later on could be explored into so what's going on here at play. But I'm more wondering, how much does influencers, his support, his community, how helpful are they? Because some of them I agree with, and I'm sort of trying to throw in a few comments here and there. And how much of a, I don't want to say detriment, but like not even like a deterrent, but not helpful, or more so like in an enabling way of perpetuating this cycle of going around with this emotional narrative of sorts. So it seems, maybe I'm talking a bit too roundabout, be a bit more, spit it out, Billy. It seems as though as time has progressed, he's developed a narrative, a story to explain his predicament. And it's not necessarily being embellished, but it's taking the forefront. It's like he's investing in this story, when we all know that that you need to let that go. But obviously, for whatever reasons, like it's hard to let go of something, especially if you've been investing in it. So it doesn't really leave much room for the ambition of an alternative path to take. It's almost like he's setting his course, or becoming more rigid, holding on to this twig of a life raft, and using that as a justification to be like, look, I can't, as much as I might say I want to change and have this dream of meeting a nice girl and things like that, I'm holding on to my story as the reason why that can't happen. And I think maybe some of the comments I would have spoken about would be like along the lines of, never mind a relationship, you need to work on the self-esteem first. And the reason why you're feeling so upset, and you're depressed, and you're ruminating, and you're fantasizing, and all this is all tied to self-esteem. And I'm wondering, when people, is there an element when someone daydreams in this manner, and you've got outside people suggesting, hey, why don't you do this, pick up a hobby, follow your interests. It's almost like, I know the intention is to try and like find yourself, to find your self-esteem, your identity and things like that, but is there an element simultaneously where it's like a dissociation? It's like we're talking about someone else, a person he can never be. And could that be working against him? Sort of like torturing this individual in a way. It's sort of putting him on a kind of idolized pedestal. It's like, imagine what you could become. You could be happy if you do this, if you did that. And he can see it. He could be like, yes, it sounds wonderful. Hey, that sounds like a great guy. I wish I was that person, but I am not that person. I don't want to be degrading, but like I'm misery guts over here. I can only dream of being that person. Hey, JR and Cuban Speed, thank you for joining. So it's just making me sort of think, is there another way we can approach these sort of situations, bearing in mind, I mean, I'm of the belief, like, yeah, like, no, that people don't change unless they've hit rock bottom, and they have to really hit rock bottom. They have to have no other choice, really. It's not something that's done normally out of their own willingness. They kind of have to be forced into changing. And I might joke about mortifying people and ha 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 nihilism or something like that, but I do it in sort of jest with this sort of optimism, because it's like, good, because now we can stop playing games and actually get on with doing the real work. And even though it's hard and scary and all of that, hey, that's again your imagination running wild. Once you sort of face your fears or whatever, usually it turns out it's like a boogeyman. It turns out, hey, you're afraid of your own shadow, and it's not as bad as you thought it was. Yes, you have to sort of persevere and sort of come to Jesus or whatever. But what else? What other choice do you have, really? And that's what I'm wondering. Like, does it have to really be like that? Like, how can we encourage people to make a change for the better without them needing to be in a state of pulverization where they've been like, is it, or is it that's how it is? So, because it can be, it can be like frustrating for the audience, or for people, friends and family who care about this guy, and sort of like witnessing and watching the decline, because that's another sort of tricky area where it's like, how low does someone have to go? Like, they can take the punishment, because one of the sort of symptoms is that tolerance to pain starts to develop, where they get used to having their esteem knocked, and they get comfortable with being depressed. They get comfortable with the pain and the dreaming, and it's almost like it's like defeatist slash fatalistic about it, and almost like they declare to themselves, like, so be it, this will be my life from now on. And these are young guys, middle-aged fellas, and it's not really, the age isn't really an excuse, even if you're a more elderly chap, to be resounding this sort of like, yeah, what's the point of it all, and so be it. I mean, there comes a point where it's like, well, you have to be responsible for if this is your choice is that you have no choice. If only you could see that, it's kind of like self-harm, and you're choosing what's easy, perhaps because you don't realize. And that's where it's kind of frustrating watching, because it's like you're so close. It's like you're searching everywhere but inside. You're looking under all these stones for some sort of hope and prayer, or your esteem, or some sort of identity, or whatever. If only you realize it was pretty much already in your hands. It's not far away. You just, and this is where it ties into that deconstruct series. It's like it's a case that you can't see it properly. Your mind is clouded, and you see the world with distortions and exaggerations and unbalanced. So you have, no wonder you're in a mess, and in a way, no wonder you're creating some kind of understanding of how to explain this chaotic world, and this forms this sort of narrative of like, I'm unlovable, I've got bad luck, oh, I'm supposed to suffer, oh, whatever sort of thing. And it's a desperate, sad way of conceptualizing it. It's sort of like there's such a lack of happiness that the only sort of relief is this weird explanation you've conjured up to explain it, which doesn't quite explain it either. I noticed that's another sort of characteristic. Listening, like he was talking about some of his he had these vivid dreams, and he'll tie it in with some experiences, and he'll throw in a bit of his desires, his wish list or whatever, all of which are it's not it lacks the substance. It's almost like there's a subconscious, deliberate attempt of like creating a blurred vision full of detail. It's a rich structure that is full of blurry detail. It's a sort of oxymoron element to it, and I think it's deliberately blurry, like mysteries, so that it seems like a puzzle that needs to be solved. So it kind of draws people in to want to help. Hey, let me help you here. So it has this kind of invitation element style to it, and draws people in. But when they want to make their comments, yes, intellectually he might be like, I hear you, I see what you're saying here, but there is not really a desire of wanting to change that structure he's formulated. And obviously that goes back to the idea of like, probably because people are attempting to change something that he doesn't want to change. Like, only he can change this structure. What is he going to change it? What is he going to substitute it with? So, using a bit of the old psychology kind of stuff, the fear of letting go, the fear of being vulnerable, and things like that. So I feel kind of bad for the guy. Like, I don't know how long, it appears as though because they got the endurance and the tolerance, and time has almost sort of ceased to exist. People can stay in this state, and they might have been in this state already for decades. It's almost like, as long as they do just enough to have self-preservation, then they can continue. But obviously they don't have a sense of fulfillment, and it doesn't bring them any joy or anything like that. It's torturous. So I don't know, sometimes, if as much as people might want to help, maybe you might hear sometimes being said like the best way of helping someone is to not help. I guess that's an area of discernment, because if you leave someone in isolation, that that in itself is also a precarious situation to be in. But how much? Well, that's why this isn't really a deep dive in the matter. It's more of just an observation. Are there areas or things that we could look into, perhaps, and then try it from a different point of view? So that's a kind of typical, anyway, a scenario that I think a lot of us have come across at some point. I see, oh, Bandit's here. Good to see you, Bandit. Thank you, sir. Now the second, see what could happen. I'll try and segue into the second thing, where there is a lack of a sense of self and identity. I don't know who I am, and that kind of thing. A person is like an empty vessel, and they're trying to fill it. So I don't think it's uncommon to take examples from other people and start to replicate or emulate or copy them. And it just so happens that I've come to my attention that I've got someone who's been trying to copy me recently, at least, especially, and I find that a bit aggravating, a bit insultive, not just to me but to themselves as well. Because, if you're trying to find a sense of, you're trying to find your own uniqueness, your own individualism, but there you are trying to copy someone else, well, then you're not your own person. You're just a clone of, in this case, of me. And now some people generally be like, it's kind of funny when, what did they say? What's the saying? Mimicry is flattery. Like if you find out you got someone who's copying you, you can kind of feel a little bit big-headed, but I'm not. I'd see it. I take it the other way. I get a bit irritated by that. So, especially when it comes down to things like copying how I sneeze, I'm just like, damn it, man. Now I'm gonna have to I goof around when I sneeze because it's funny with my kid. And now I've got someone who's trying to copy that. It's just like, you should be just you do you. And at the same time, that envious, that and angry with me because I'm a father and they want to be a father, and you're angry with me, but you want to copy me. So it's cringy and actually kind of creepy as well. You don't want to support this channel or the work I do. You want to have like a spitefulness towards me, and you want to steal my identity and try to use my material as well, my work or whatever. But enough about that. Hopefully this won't become a big thing, and this person, should they be listening, which they might be, will feel a little embarrassed and realize just do you, right? You're fine as you are. And then we can move on to the third. So that's the kind of, as a situational thing that might happen, is basically if you've got someone they're lost in their narrative, their world is a disorientating, confusing landscape. What do? They start to what are one of the things they could do, instead of doing inner work and self-growth, is to try and shortcut it by imitating someone else. Now, if you're doing an impersonation, like tongue-in-cheek and things like that, that's hilarious, that's fine, but this isn't that kind of scenario. And it's another thing as well, if someone, you admire their dress sense and you go, hey, maybe I should dressed a little bit like that, but you got to make it your own. I think that's the point I'm making. You know, it's like the information you learn, you pick up information, you've got to kind of make it your own. And that's showing respect to those who may have taught you as well. Like, here's the ball, you run with it. Don't make me have to do all the legwork and then you just like a freeloader. So let's move on to the third group of situational examples this governor thinks. So I was on the phone to one of the sort of leaders of the group, and they're asking me, did I want to continue with a commitment to be this governor? And there are some documents to be read, and a requirement for the next meeting is that you read these documents because you're going to be asked to sign that you've read them. So I read the documents, and it's the main parts that kind of stuck out to me were like, it mentions about safeguarding, and it mentions like things to look out for, like, is there emotional abuse, is the child is doing this, if there's turbulence at home, if they're coming in late, that could be a sign of things aren't going right. So, you know, things you would expect to be noticing or paying attention to when it comes to children. You know, are they bullying? Are they upset? Are they doing this? Are they eating well? Are they clean? You know, and one of the points was, are they being radicalized? And I thought, oh, hello, that's interesting. So are they becoming like extremists or something? You know, there's kind of like political language. And so when the guy phones me and says, you know, do you want to continue, and why? And I said no. And he's like, so is there a reason? You know, is there something you want to say? And I said, like, well, I could sign that I've read this documentation, but I don't agree that the school has actually been following it. I think it's a bit hypocritical, and there are contradictions. And I brought up a couple of instances where I've spoken up or spoken out or whatever, and what I was talking about just flew over their heads, and immediately the first time it happened was an immediate kind of like, oh, but did you watch the video? Like, as if my answer would be in this video of theirs, and shame on you kind of thing. So this sort of passive aggressiveness of trying to not answer my concerns, because I know the answer is not going to be in their video, because I talk psychology stuff. You know, I talk about, whoa, we're gonna, if you do this and do that, and we're not factoring the ramifications, then this is like opening up Pandora's box. You allow the Trojan horse in, it all looks shiny and wonderful, and you're all happy about it, but you've let the enemy in, and now we're going to have these other problems that knock on. You know, they talk about, well, we want to teach the children confidence, and I'm like, you don't even know what those words mean. You want to teach, like, you're going to teach arrogance, gambling, risk taking. You're going to teach bullying aspects, and there you are saying that you want to teach anti-bullying. And here's a prize we won before anti-bullying, and I'm just like, why are you giving prizes out for just having morals? Like, do I get a prize because I didn't run someone over today in my car? No. It's like, well done, you didn't bully. You know, and what kind of things are you teaching through that? You're teaching like competition. Well, actually, I'm going to read out what. So as I was telling him this, he turns around and immediately does the very thing I'm saying. He goes, "Ooh, those are some like strong statements or allegations you're making," and I'm like, "Oh yeah," as if to intimidate me, like watch yourself, Billy. Be careful what you're saying here. And he goes like, but do you think maybe you might have got the wrong idea, or maybe you got a misunderstanding? So trying to make me doubt myself, and I stopped him immediately and said, "Wait, don't you be trying to gaslight me?" Oh, how am I gaslight? What do you mean by that? And I'm just like, "Oh, because you're trying to insinuate that I might be wrong, when you don't even know what I'm talking about, and I don't expect you to, because none of you have the psychology background, and especially, I'm not trying to brag or something like that, but even like a rudimentary, um, it's not this sort of stuff that we discuss here isn't common knowledge. You don't go through life having. It's a bit of a sad state of affairs where you go through life and then you find out later on, it's like, damn it, you mean I have to learn this stuff? Because it kind of puts a damper on. It's, if you're not careful, it can kind of give you a bit of a pessimistic view on society. It's like, you're telling me that everyone is actually kind of, not everyone, but you know what I mean. Like, you're telling me that a lot of people are just winging it through life, and no wonder they're. You mean these people we thought were emotionally adept and balanced and um, have a strong sort of, not even necessarily strong, but who are fortified, who are complete people? You're telling me that's not actually a given, and what we've got instead is a world full of unstable, disorganized, erratic, emotional, neurotic, chaotic. It's almost kind of like, no wonder there are so many problems, and this is just surface level. The idea that, as a result, you mean people aren't actually really living in reality? For the most part, people are living in their own kind of fantasy, and somehow it kind of works. This is sort of scary stuff when you look at it in that sort of framework. And that's why I'm like, I don't expect these people as a governing body to have to be prepared for the mic drop that I would lay on them. But that kind of flippant attitude of like, instead of being stunned and, glitching or processing, I can respect that. But to turn around and just be like, well, watch yourself, Billy, or maybe it's you that's seeing things a bit funny. It's like, right, if you thought that was strong, just you wait. You're not even real. Okay, so anyway, I said my piece, and he thanked me for my service for the year that went by, and if I've got any suggestions how the body, the collective, I mean, he refers to themselves as the collective, sort of like conduct their decision making, to give him a little heads up or pointers or whatever. Which is kind of funny, because it's like, one of the reasons why I'm leaving is because I don't want to be part of a group that are mentally and emotionally bankrupt. And like we're saying, they're not going to really take on board what is being said. So I would end up being complicit and helpless to make any changes. They just want yes people. They just want people to be part of the Borg. And so I would make no difference being there. It'd be a waste of breath and very irritable, antagonizing. And in my stepping down, if they put two and two together, which I don't think they will do, is put in action where my words are. In my mind anyway, maybe I'm wrong, but it makes a statement of like, it's one thing to say it, but these are the actions I'm going to take, which is I'm going to step down. Like, would any of them be willing to step down? I don't think so, because they put their pride, because they want to be accepted and virtue signal, and they've got their own personal agendas at the that are more important to them than the children. So I don't see any of them, even if they did reflect and go, oh shit, I think we've just been caught out. Never mind, let's just carry on. We'll pretend it does. We pretend our ears were closed. Lord Sarsay, good to see you. So I'm going to share what I wrote. It's kind of funny. Like, now normally I write a lot, and I know their attention span isn't that great. So I was like, right, try and condense this down. Just keep it simple. They don't need an entire book, just a few points. And even then, it turned out to be a complete A4 page. I was just like, shit. So this will take about 7 minutes to read through. I'll share it on the screen so you can kind of get an idea of, just for you might, oh, that's here is something Billy writes. Is this the right one? Let's see. I don't know if you'll be able to read it. It might be for small font. Ignore the orange stuff. That's just kind of like notes and filler. I'll tell you what, you don't. Should I leave it there? Oh, I'll just put it like that. So just one page. So basically one page. So I put, all right. Can you read that? Shall I zoom in or? So I put, hi, here are some suggestions for consideration. So that's the first bit. Number one, when someone brings something that needs to be accounted for, avoiding to answer it by spinning it around as if they're in the wrong for noticing things or thinking in such a way is gaslighting. This ego defensive behavior is indicative of a lot of other things at play. If what was said was strong, there must be a reason for that. To be honest, and that's quite a strong statement. I mean, it's like, if what I say is strong, then the crimes you're committing, hello, and you're just gonna ignore that and try and make me feel defensive and on the back foot, have to justify myself. No, I'm not the one that needs to be accountable here. You are. To be honest, I wish I could pretend I don't see any concerns. That would be convenient. I could then just deny and avoid responsibility, which is what they're doing. They're avoiding the responsibility by trying to make me be responsible for what I was saying, which is basically putting forward questions and holding them accountable, which is my role as a governor. The patterns observed aren't anything new. There is literature covering it. It is not my wild imagination. And I was going to get a bit, hold back, Billy. I was going to be like, it's not me with my head up my ass. Number two, use critical thinking to see potential ramifications. Just because an idea sounds good doesn't mean it is or is carried out in the right way. Example, this anti-bullying thing. Anti-bullying sounds good, but accepting awards, because they got a prize for being, I don't know, a school for not bullying or something like that. And anti-bullying sounds good, but accepting awards for it and showboating creates competition and shame, among other things. And there's a whole bunch of other things. I've got another whole paragraph of this predicament they've created with this campaign for anti-bullying. Instead of learning the importance of morals, it is replaced with learning how to have entitled expectations. Morals loses its meaning, and just becomes morals loses its meaning. Maybe it's meant to be lose. Morals lose its meaning and just becomes a means to obtaining addiction. You shouldn't get a prize just because you have some morals. Well done, you didn't beat someone up today. So the point I'm making here is that the understanding of why anti-bullying, why it's wrong to beat someone up or bully someone, is totally put aside, is overlooked, and replaced with this, oh, I'm only going to do something because I want an award. Now, what will happen if they don't get an award? What's going to stop them from bullying? Instead, they're going to feel they would feel resentment. Like, you're telling me you have to bribe the children to stop them from bullying with these awards. And what does it mean also? It means things like, oh, look at this school. We're better than the other schools. Shame on those people. they're not as kind as we are. So not only is there this entitled expectation, and competitiveness, but there's this egotistical. You're actually like putting shame on other people, which is kind of like bullying. You're rubbing it in the faces of other people so that you can feel proud about yourself because you don't bully. And it's like, well, you shouldn't be bullying anyway. I don't know why you want a biscuit for it. Anyway, moving on. Number 3, emotional literacy. It is more than just a definition. Emotions can appear as logic, but they are not the same. Without awareness, the ego will subconsciously drive motivations and actions. You won't know you're doing it because the ego has no problem lying to you. It is these gaps in perception that I'm trying to bring attention to, which the ego doesn't want you to know about. When a person acts out of ego, they are not acting out of self. Hence the need to self-reflect, which is a form of self-accountability, to then be able to have self-awareness. So that's a little bit of a slap. If they understood what was said there, that's me saying to them, basically, you people are so in your dream and asleep that you're retarded and dumb that you don't have any self-awareness. You don't even realize what you're doing because you are so ego driven. That's and the expression of like a slave to your ego and things like that. So that should be quite a powerful thing. A mature minded person would hear that, and this is why I believe, you guys would probably understand this to be like, yeah, that's a wake up call. That's a like, stop lying to yourself. Time to have some honesty and be like, shit, yeah, I need to be accountable for myself and not allow my emotions to run amok and do things where I'm being pulled along. Where I might say, because it appears as logic, like the principle of anti-bullying sounds wonderful, but I don't realize that I'm actually doing it in a selfish manner because of what I can gain on a personal level. But from experience of how they spun things around, like from the first one with trying to put the accountability and pressure onto me, what's more likely to happen? They'll probably take an offense to this and get triggered and not like hearing that. More likely they'll probably double down. But anyway, number 4, stop looking for acceptance, prize, applause, pride, and admiration above duty. And this is another kind of like what the fuck are you doing? This comes from a need for survival. It's a natural fear of being irrelevant or rejected from the tribe. Be careful with people pleasing because of fearing conflict, shame, or rejection, and passing this down as generational trauma. Saying things to avoid hurting people's feelings is not actually being kind to people. Look up codependency and the damaging effects. People who fear vulnerability often become aggressive, defensive, and controlling, which is what we've already been seeing. They don't recognize it. Again, you lack the self-awareness because they think they are protecting and take a victim stance. Look up slave morality, Nietzsche, and also narcissism. So that's sort of calling them out as the tyrants that they're pretending not to be. And me saying, I see through your charade. I know what you guys are up to. This is nothing to do with children. This is all like the operations of running a school. This is all about your desperate need of being part of the tribe and feeling validated, because you've got issues of your own. You've got your own adult issues that you're going to pass down to the kids. So it's kind of like you need to sort yourselves out first. Number 5. All right, this is a bit of a petty one, but it's like this: reduce using acronyms. These silly, right? So they've got this acronym WWW, and that is what would work. And so I put these silly WWW, what would work, etc. They reduce cognitive functions. This includes play on words, catchy slogans, etc. Although it can be useful as a form of easy think, I did originally put lazy think because that's what it is really. So although it can be useful as a form of lazy think, so that information can be remembered or conveyed easier, overuse comes at a cost. And I did put, although it could be useful for children, because this is like children mentality. Although it could be useful for children to have lazy think so that they can remember stuff easier, but it comes at a cost. Information is no longer information no longer becomes scrutinized for errors or things that are suspicious go unchecked, or things that are suspicious go unchecked. Plus, it gets confusing translating all these acronyms just because someone wants kudos and turn it into a gimmick. Example. So there was a campaign. This wasn't done by the school as such. This is like a governmental campaign or some sort of organization who enlisted schools to participate. And this is where the school should have safeguarded and told them to fuck off, but didn't, and participated in the data harvesting and the whereabouts of kids. And they called this campaign Beat the Street. It's supposed to encourage kids to exercise more, get off your laptops and your screens and go out and exercise. So they had on the lamppost these boxes, and they gave these kids cards that you'd beep on the lamppost, and it would record where that child was and how far, because they would go to the next lamppost. I don't know, not necessarily the immediate next, be like, I don't know, a quarter of a mile away or something, and beep that one. And well done, you get like, it'll do a little jingle song or whatever and make the kid feel happy. Well, my kid was addicted to this, and even in the brochure it used the words addiction. And while this was taking place, kids were leaving the school premises in order to beep this bloody card on the lampposts outside. So that's the campaign anyway. This idea of trying to get people to be healthy. So is the example is Beat the Street, which sounds cool, a euphemism for postcode wars. Now, I don't know if you've got that postcode wars where you are, but in the UK, gang culture, which is, I put brackets, gang culture. Oh, wasn't meant to edit that. Gang culture. This is gang culture language. Yeah, where one postcode, it'd be like one state going to war with another state, or one block of flats having gang wars with another block of flats, like J block versus D block or something. So in this country, yeah, we had a thing. I mean, they called it postcode wars. So I found the similarity very too close for comfort, and it gets overlooked because you're too busy being sold on, oh, it sounds so neat and cool and catchy and ooh la la. You stop using critical thinking. So how can someone promote anti-bullying, but at the same time, you've got things like beat this, fight that, eat them to defeat them? I mean, each of these are campaigns. And I've got a thing or two to say about each. Eat them to defeat them. That's to get people to eat more vegetables. So vegetables are the enemy, and you must eat them to defeat them. So we're going to war with vegetables, which I thought were supposed to be our friends. And the idea is that you eat your enemy to defeat them. Pretty tribalistic, if you're asking me. And we're going to pretend that we do anti-bullying and we're all kind and lovey-dovey and all this. So this is why I'm like, it's madness. The contradictions. These mixed messages and contradictions create cognitive dissonance, and how goalposts can be moved to blur the distinctions of boundaries. So a whole bunch of concepts for them to keep them busy. Number 6, say no to political ideology and SJW rhetoric. By allowing boundaries to be broken, integrity becomes compromised, and you force yourself into a bind with codependency. I should have put state codependency or state dependency. It is a contradiction to safeguard against radicalizing by cultivating or enabling radical activism. Children are not shields or spearheads for adult issues. Let children have their childhood, otherwise, you stunt their emotional development. Instead of being accepted for who they are, they learn they can only be accepted for what they do, to make adults happy so that they can be given love. This is transactional love and leads to destroying self esteem. Just look around you at the adults to see this in effect. And then in closing, I put there are plenty of other practices I could comment on, but I'll leave with this rhetorical question. Which is more important, pride or children? Thank you. There you go. That's what I wrote. See what they think of that. Vote Billy. Oops. So just read your comments. See someone who's talking about red rum. I don't mind people copy my stuff. All I ask is that you get it right. Oh, that's going back to the thing is, Iridium is not. It's more like they are. It's more like pretending to be you. It's like critical thinking. What is that? Surely you jest. Yes, very, very much, almost cult-like. And that's the thing. And I mean, they're kind of screwed in a way because they got that bind that they've put themselves in, and they've already sort of put their foot in it. They've already kind of gone on this course. I mean, what are they supposed to do? They got to make a choice. Do they want to virtue signal and promote all this stuff so that they can feel better about themselves as adults? The adults can feel better about themselves, or is it about actually helping the children like they say it is or should be? Because you can't have it both ways. And if you really are going to be putting in the children first, then they need to either restructure everything, step down for their positions, or get in. I said you really do need to hire some psychologists and professionals in here, because you're taking on things that are beyond your scope of expertise. You're doing things like political ideology and SJW. Like, this isn't to do with children. Don't try and, obviously they'll try and spin it, be like, oh, but it's important because these kids live in a society and they're gonna it's going to have a knock-on effect. And it's like, no, you're well, we know what's going on. They're creating the problem for them to solve, or pretend to. They're creating the problem to give themselves a reason to pretend that they can solve it, but it's the opposite. They facilitate it. And it's kind of, that goes with the sort of the Nietzsche slave morality. They're going to pretend that they're the victims, but at the same time, they're championing the progressive narrative, because accolades and awards and achievements is what's most important. Now, there is an argument where there is a sort of devil work, where it's like they have to do a little bit of PR, otherwise you don't get any parents enrolling their kids to the school. So you do get this sort of publicity style of or that kind of side of things. But that's bleeding over into all aspects where it becomes an appearance, it becomes a show. And as we know in this channel, we talk about narcissism. It all kind of gets connected to narcissism, where it's all a show. The school really is just show business. It's not really about education. It's not really about the welfare or the development or safeguarding or any of this. It's just about the appearance, the facade, to look competent, to look relevant, to look virtuous. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And it's for that sort of reason, which at the very end I said, which is more important, your pride or the children? As much as they would like to say that, well, they'll probably try and say it's the children, but their actions aren't going to match up with their words. When, you know, the children is like an afterthought. The children are sacrificed in order to make this show business operate smoothly. And I don't want any part of that, so I step down. And if they have any sense of a conscience, either it's going to be, you know, hopefully like a reality check, or they would realize, yeah, I think really they'll put themselves into therapy, would be my recommendation. And have a bit more honesty, because none of this will really make any difference or penetrate their cranium if there isn't some level of, or a willingness to have some honesty. And it goes back to that, you know, like I was giving some situational examples. It goes back to the first example where it's like these web of lies, these inner worlds, fantasy worlds that are created, they're not real, so they're not on it, they're not true, and you have to start treating yourself with some respect and decency to stop lying to yourself. And this goes back also to my first video in the series of Deconstruct, of stop pretending. You know, it's okay if it's frightening and scary and is unknown and spooky and daunting. That's part of it, and that ties in with this idea of confidence as well. It's like, what if I don't feel confident? Well, that's an issue of like you're scared kind of thing. It's okay to be scared, but confidence will see you through. You carry that being scared and frightened with you. You still do it because you have confidence. It's in your pocket. It's not like a dangling carrot in front of you that you must chase it. Because if you did have confidence in front of you, and you did succeed in doing what the thing, whatever it is you were feeling unconfident about, then what was it that made you do it? So really, you already have confidence. It's just you don't realize you have it. And what you see, or what the school is trying to teach is to make you chase after happiness, to make you chase after your esteem, to make you chase after your identity, instead of it being self-generated, from coming from within. But those are, you know, that's sort of maybe a bit more, that's too advanced for them to realize at this stage. So there we have it, basically. Got a bit worked up with that. Right. So yeah, I'll close up and say thank you all for being here. With that out of the way, because I kind of interrupted, I can now proceed with doing the next video for the Deconstruct series, which is about perception. I didn't realize that was opening up lots of branches stem from it, so that's why it's taken quite a bit of time. And there are sort of overlaps with other conversations we've had, so it's just been a bit tricky to. I thought I had it all written out until I was like reviewing it. I was like, this isn't. I need to restructure it. So it's a bit of a complicated one, not as easy as I thought it would be. So that's the reason for the delay. But thank you anyway for hanging around and being patient with me. I know I might be a bit slow, and not too sure when the next one will be, but until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Treat yourself kindly, and look after yourselves, look after your health, put your needs, address your needs and things like that. And all the best. See you then. Thank you for being here.